All right, good evening. Thank you for tuning in for this presentation tonight. The Downtown Business Improvement District is interested in exploring the Commercial Historic District. So tonight we have myself, Jess Wilds. I'm the Communications and Economic Development Director at the City of West Bend. We have Jay Shambo, our City Administrator. And we also have Peggy Veregin here from the Wisconsin Historical Society. She is the National Register Coordinator. So Peggy is going to be here tonight to give us a little bit of background information and general frequently asked question answers to what it means to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places in Wisconsin. And we are in particular looking at a commercial district in the bid. So Peggy, thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. Are we all set? Should I just go ahead?
Yes, that's great. And I guess just one moment before you do go ahead, I'd love to remind the audience that tonight we will be taking live questions. So if they'd like to call or email in, they're welcome to do so, and we will answer questions at the end of your presentation. So if you are watching right now, you can call or text 262-343-6253, or you can send in an email address to my email. It's a little bit long, but it's wildesj@ci.west-bend.wi.us. Probably easier to email or text or call, but we will be taking those questions later on in the presentation, and you will have an opportunity to write in afterwards as well if you have lingering questions. So thank you. So Peggy, thank you for joining us tonight. You're welcome to begin your presentation.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. It is a little weird because I'm used to being able to look out and see faces and see who's here. So bear with me. But I am very happy to be with you this evening to talk to you about the National Register program. I don't know how many, often I ask, how many people are familiar with the National Register. But so I don't know, some of you may have heard of it before, but I'm just going to give you really a broad overview presentation about the program, what it is and what it means, and then I am, of course, happy to answer your questions. So my name is Peggy Veregin. I administer the National Register program for the state of Wisconsin. And so this project, if it moves forward, would be working with my office for that nomination. So the National Register program, what most people know about the National Register is that they know that it recognizes really the most important and considered the most iconic buildings in our communities. So these pictures of, the Capitol, people think about the best of the best, and that's the National Register. And while that's true, what some people don't realize is that the National Register is designed to recognize the important buildings in each of our communities. So regardless of the makeup of the community, the National Register is set up to recognize significant buildings that make our communities special. So we are able to list in the National Register all kinds of different properties, farms and schools and city halls and industrial properties. It accommodates all of these things. And so it reflects each of our communities. It's really wonderful. So the National Register is largely for private property owners, it's an honorific program. For private property owners, it generally is not a regulatory program. It's honorific, and it's a list of buildings, districts, sites, structures that are significant in American history, architecture, culture, engineering. So these things are significant, and they tell something. It tells an important story about our history, our prehistory of the community, state, or the nation. And that includes archaeological properties. So the National Register is just a list of these really important places in our community. And it's an honorific designation, not a regulatory designation for private property owners. We can list properties in the National Register under multiple and various criteria. And the buildings must meet these criteria to be eligible for the National Register. And there are four: history, architecture, association with an important person, and criterion D is archaeology. Now, I know that the city is investigating the potential for a historic district. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what is an historic district and what does that mean. And a district really is a collection of buildings that together, the collection together tells the story of significance. So a district forms a unified, defined, visually, architecturally distinctive area that has cohesion, in contrast to the area outside of the district. Districts have contributing buildings. That means buildings that contribute to the significance of the district, why the district is important. Some buildings contribute to that significance. We also may have non-contributing buildings, and those are excluded due to, there are various factors, but perhaps there's low architectural integrity because they've been altered, or they may be too new to relate to the historic period. So there are different reasons why buildings may be non-contributing, but districts will often have a combination of mostly contributing and then some non-contributing for those reasons. But again, a district is that collection of buildings, and it's the collection that tells that important story. So we can have districts that are residential districts, commercial districts, industrial districts. We have archaeological sites that are districts, archaeological districts, rural districts, all kinds. There are different types of commercial districts, and I'm just going to show you a few pictures of different types, just so that you can get an idea of the variety that we have. This is an example of a traditional courthouse square district. And this is a linear commercial district. So, basically you have Main Street and the buildings on either side of Main Street. And as you go up and down the street, the buildings in the district just follow that linear pattern. And we also have districts with irregular boundaries. So this is an example. This is actually a residential district, and it's quite large, but this is just showing you an example of a large residential district with those irregular boundaries. So we have covered the different types of districts, but what does it mean to be in an historic district? And this is where it comes in. People may have heard about the National Register, but often people hear wrong information or partial information. So I'm going to go over some of the misconceptions that people have heard about listing in the National Register. So I'll go over these now. If my property is listed, I must open it to the public. and that's not true. Your property remains private property. There's no obligation to open your building to the public. If my property is listed, I can paint my house any color I want. And as far as the National Register program is concerned, that is true. So remember, it's not a regulatory program, it's an honorific designation. So we don't regulate paint color. I can't ever change anything if it's listed. And this gets back to that same idea of being an honorific designation, not a regulatory designation. So that's false. If you are listed in the National Register, you can do with your building anything you wanted to do before you were listed in the National Register. You can remodel, you can add an addition, you can update your mechanical systems, you can put on a new roof, you can do whatever you want as long as there's no, what we say, public money involved. That's federal or state money, licenses, or permitting. In those cases of public money involved in your project, in those cases, my office does review that project. But if it's private money, private property, we do not review those projects. You just simply have to follow all local municipal ordinances for your project, as you normally would. Anything over 50 years old is eligible for the National Register. And that's not true. So 50 years is sort of the baseline for how old a building has to be minimally to be eligible for the National Register. But it's not just about being old. A property must also be significant, and it must also have integrity, meaning unchanged from its historic period. Still reflect its historic appearance with those original materials and features. So it has to have both. It has to, well, all three. It has to have the age, it has to have significance and integrity. So if the National Register is not regulatory, people wonder, what's in it for me? Why should I do this project? And there are numerous answers. People have different motivations for listing their building or their district in the National Register. Many people recognize that most buildings are not eligible for the National Register. And so when their building is eligible or a district is eligible, it reflects their pride in their property and their community. They appreciate the recognition from the National Park Service. Listing fosters that community identity, and people use it as a way to promote their community and to promote local history. They promote their community through heritage tourism, and listing also facilitates economic reinvestment. Because one of the benefits of listing in the National Register is that property owners are eligible to use rehabilitation tax credits. These are tax credits that are only available to buildings listed in the National Register, and the tax credits are a preservation incentive. So it's a program that's encouraging appropriate repairs to your historic building. Tax credits, we have two programs. We have a program for homeowners, and there's also a program for income producing properties. And one of the rules of the tax credit program is that your project needs to be reviewed and approved by my office before work starts. So that's just one of the rules of using the tax credit program. The federal income producing, the income producing tax credit, there's a 20% federal and a 20% state credit, and those can be combined for a total of 40% credit on eligible expenses to make repairs. And for income producing properties, it's more of a substantial rehabilitation. of your building. So we have these federal tax credits. There are a few rules that people need to follow. Pre-approval is required. I already mentioned the property has to be listed in the National Register. And then your project has to be scheduled over 2 or 5 years. So the project has to be completed in that time frame. And then there is a 5-year recapture period. And that basically means if you sell your building, part of the credit will be recaptured. If you sell your building within 5 years of completing your project, some of your credit will be recaptured. So there are some rules like that to using the program. The National Register of Historic Places has been active in Wisconsin since 1966. And we have well over 2,100 individual buildings or properties listed in the National Register, and over 400 districts. As you can see from this list, some districts are quite small and others are quite large. And so again, the National Register is really able to accommodate all kinds of different scenarios in different communities. West Bend is no stranger to the National Register, and there are properties listed in the National Register, and there's also one historic district that's already listed in West Bend, and that was listed in 1992. There's a really nice variety of different types of buildings that are currently listed in the National Register in West Bend, including the courthouse and jail, the Frisbee House, the post office, a mill, a factory, train depot, a school, and a convent, another school. So this is a really nice variety, and it really illustrates that point that there is a variety of different building types that can be listed in the National Register. So people often ask who decides what properties are historic, and people need to be aware that there are 2 different types of designation. There's state and federal designation, and that's what I'm talking to you about this evening. That's the State Register and the National Register of Historic Places. And those programs are administered by my office under state and federal law. It's an honorific designation. There are also, you can also locally landmark buildings and districts. Local landmark designation is administered under local ordinance. So that is administered by the local government under local ordinance. And local designation is actually the mechanism that communities have to protect historic buildings, because there is review authority, and the Landmarks Commission or the Historic Preservation Commission reviews projects and can deny projects if that project does not follow the preservation ordinance. So local landmark designation is completely separate. That's the designation for protecting historic buildings, but that all happens locally under local ordinance. Properties are listed in the National Register through a process of identification. There's a nomination form that's completed for that building or that district. The nomination is presented to our State Historic Preservation Review Board. Our review board meets quarterly, and they review and approve all of our nominations, and they make a recommendation to the National Park Service, where we send our nominations. That's the next step after review board. We send our nominations to the National Park Service and ask them to consider that property for the National Register. And that's sort of the final step along the path. Once the Park Service lists that building or that structure or that property district, then it is listed in the National Register. The Wisconsin Historical Society has a website here, wisconsinhistory.org, and there's quite a bit of information on the website. And so I just wanted to mention it to you so that you know it's a resource for you. You can explore historic properties. This is a screenshot of the homepage, and that box at the top far right, preserve your homes and properties. If you click on that box, it takes you to the landing page for the Historic Preservation Division. And here you can access information about the National Register and tax credits, and even tips for how to take care of an historic building. Which, if you click on that link, you will get to this screen, and there are, over 100 articles about best practices for taking care of an historic building, including making upgrades and improving energy efficiency, building additions, how to take care of your house or your building, your commercial building. So this is a great resource for people, and you don't have to be listed in the National Register to take advantage of the information that's on this page, and all the different articles on this page. There's also links to those 2 tax credit programs, and you can get all that information here on the website. Or if you have questions or are looking for information, you're more than welcome to contact me directly. This is my contact information. These days, with working from home, it's easier to reach me by email, and I've included Paul's contact information, although, if anyone was interested in using the tax credits, that's a little bit further down the line. We're really not there yet because the district would have to be listed in order for people to use the tax credits. But if we get that far and we are able to list this district and people want to use the tax credit program, you'd be working with Paul Porter to, he'd be reviewing your project and helping you through that process. And that's all I have for you right now. But as Jess mentioned, I am happy and available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Peggy. Thanks for going over that for everybody. We didn't receive any questions via text or email in advance, but we did get a couple on Facebook from our initial post encouraging people to watch and learn more, so perhaps they're on now. So before I go through what those questions are, I just want to remind anyone who is watching right now that they are welcome to call or text 262-343-6253. Peggy, when we posted this online, a couple people immediately chimed in with some negative comments, so I'm hoping that you might be willing to address them. One said that it sounds like a way for government to restrict business growth. Could you address that question, please, or statement?
Sure. Listing in the National Register, it's actually quite the opposite. Communities use the National Register as a very, very effective economic development tool. Developers especially, pursue the National Register listing because they can use rehabilitation tax credits to rehabilitate buildings. And it's a substantial savings of money. Communities also recognize that to draw people to their community, whether to live or to work or simply to go, people like coming to a community that has a sense of place. They're not particularly interested in going to anonymous places that look like every place else. They like going to communities that have a sense of their historic identity. That's why heritage tourism is such a massive industry in this country. So people are attracted to the quaint downtown. They're attracted to visiting a main street. people go out and they go out of their way to find those places and to visit them. So the National Register really helps to accommodate all of those economic development goals. And furthermore, as I said in the presentation, the National Register is not regulatory. So ultimately, you can do whatever you want with your building. As long as you're following local ordinances, the National Register does not regulate what you do with your building. So there's really no downside to listing. You can still do whatever you want with your building.
Thank you. You also answered my next question, because several people responded with, would this put additional restrictions on building owners? And the answer is no.
Correct.
So, wonderful.
Yeah, just to be really clear, you do not have to get our permission or approval to make any changes to your building. If you're not using tax credits, all you have to do is get the appropriate permits from your municipality. You do not have to have our review and approval of your project.
Great. Well, that covers all of the questions that we received in advance. Is there anything else that you feel you'd like to address, Peggy?
I think that I would just say that the misinformation that people have about the National Register and about historic preservation in general can be quite deeply ingrained. And so for people to hear that there are no restrictions on private property owners, that can be jarring, because it really goes against everything they've ever heard about it. But the fact of the matter is that, that's why I went through those things in my presentation. Those things that you're hearing about it are wrong. And that's why I'm here to tell you about the National Register program and to explain those elements of the program. So I would just encourage people to remember that the National Register is a fantastic tool to promote your community. It's a fantastic tool to rehabilitate and to have economic reinvestment into your community, creating jobs, creating a great place to live, attracting visitors. And, ultimately, you have all those benefits, but it's not regulatory. So if you choose, you can choose to do what you want with your building, and we wouldn't have any review over that. So it's really a win-win.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. And thanks to everybody who tuned in for our presentation. It will be available on demand. The bid board does plan to continue with this process over the next 12 to 18 months. So if you have any, if the public has any questions or is interested in learning more, I encourage you to attend our next bid meeting. It's on Tuesday, October 6th, 8:15 a.m. You can watch live on our community television channels on local cable access or online, or you can attend in person at City Hall Council Chambers. So thank you, Peggy, for joining us and for giving our community some insight into this process and what it means for our community.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. And just keep in mind that I'm here available for questions.
Thank you. All right, well,